Good day to all. I want to tell you how much I really have enjoyed being in class with each and every one of you. Your insight and your wisdom has certainly been something from which I've been able to glean much, and I certainly do appreciate our good instructor, Jeffrey Brothers, and all the great things that he does in providing for us a platform in which we can learn from him as well as from each other. The book that I chose to review is titled Forgiving What You Can't Forget. The author is Lisa TerKeurst. Now, she is not on this particular reading list with this particular work, but she is an author that's found on several other reading lists throughout the program. And this particular book is among several she has written that are truly journals of the difficulties she has faced with an overcoming spirit. I'm thankful to Professor Brothers for allowing me to take this book and bring this into our review. And this particular one caught my attention because of the title statement that was on the dust cover. It says, "Discover how to move on, make peace with painful memories, and create a life that's beautiful again." That statement, creating a life that's beautiful again, sounded so much like a miracle question, placing hope. What would life look like if you could create a beautiful life again? It just grabbed my attention and I bought it immediately. But as I began to read through it, the trauma that Lisa had suffered, and as she was working through this material, it reminded me of a work that I had seen that was authored by Kimberly Griffith and Dr. Terry Gunnels. It was published in 1997. It's titled Unfair. And some of you may know Dr. Gunnels and some of you may not, but this particular book journals the recovery therapy of Ms. Griffith after the loss of her husband and children from a double homicide-suicide event. Now, the work we're going to review here is similar in what can be described as the recording of therapeutically sorting out traumatic incidents with a desire for a better future. Now, one of the tenets of solution-focused brief therapy, of course, is an assumption that the client desires a better future. Lisa's focus is her recovery and reconciliation with her spouse after an affair. The fundamental premise of the work is that a better future requires recognition and forgiveness of the past. She provides biblically based strategies and therapeutic examples to achieve the desired outcome of this better future that she's searching for. And she begins with a section titled, "I Still Cry Over What Happened." And she's introducing these chapters this way with an introduction that sets the stage for every reader to parallel his or her defining moment from a horrific event. I was with a particular client who was seeing a psychiatrist there by request, and the statement that she used really caught my attention. At that defining moment, she said, "Everything changed after that." And anytime she referenced back to that, she would say, "Everything changed after that." Now, Lisa takes the commonly used BC and AD calendar references and gives the new definitions. BC is before crisis and AD is after devastation. Now, she notes that our mental pictures can be treasures until we associate those mental pictures with emotions provoked by betrayal. So she delved into this idea of memories. When memories pop up on your phone or when your memory is taken back because of Facebook memory reels. Lisa really brings things to true life examples, and she does an excellent job of drawing in the reader because all, of course, have suffered loss. And she noted concerning this work, it's about figuring out what to do when you can't forget what happened and forgiveness feels like a dirty word. Now, everyone struggled through the need to forgive and the little child's voice inside that screams, "No, I'm not going to," and "You should have," and "You oughta," and those things come out of a heart that's been bruised, and she's undertaking the task of talking oneself into doing what you know is best. Now, she is quite the wordsmith. She used descriptive words with a cadence pleasing to read and easy to understand, and she illustrated now gathering round a gray table to talk with everyone who has suffered loss, and her approach is to belittle none because the fact is hurt is hurt. And as she moves through the lost journey, She includes those who may not have a BC or AD moment or defining situation, but those who have a collection of hurt. In either case, Lisa mentions that the they that hurt continue to affect how one reasons and reacts to others. And before chapter 1 on forgiveness, she made a very important statement. She said, the more our pain consumes us, the more it will control us. And it's essential not to let pain ruin your future. The introduction alone motivated me to devour this book, and I really appreciated the work that she has presented here. Now, the very first chapter is titled Forgiveness, the Double-Edged Sword. Lisa opens this chapter with an interesting illustration concerning anesthesia. She rhetorically asked why the anesthesiologists are only called for physical surgery. She said, what about the pain we cannot see? That's her inferred question. She tells us that it's no less painful when raw emotions are exposed. And certainly readers from every walk of life can agree on this. She begins her story with a perspective and a conversation with another woman who understands because of her loss. And what we find here is a recording of that conversation. And though the material is fundamentally set with a woman-to-woman language, a man can gain much from this reading. Now, Lisa was callous toward all her relationships because her perspective had changed to distrust and fear, and security is lost when a person discovers that the world is not as it appeared any longer, and its security may be masked in distancing or alienating behavior. And the idea is that by keeping others away, we avoid the pain of being hurt again. Now, I really enjoyed her use of language to describe in detail alienating behavior. She referred to cynicism being dressed like a security guard, and it's our first reaction in a need for protection. So that cynicism can get in the way of any other relationship. Her essential observation was that losing those intimate relationships paves the road to losing an authentic closeness with God. Lisa goes on to say that tools we often use to overcome tragedy can be cloaked as helpful, but in reality are very detrimental. Separation opens the door to bitterness, and she continued with expressions of assault against ourselves by saying things like, bitterness was masqueraded like a high court judge, making me believe that I must protect the evidence against all those who hurt me. Now, this ill-attempt at healing hurt is not one that's easily admitted. As a matter of fact, Lisa makes the case that we need to consider very carefully this erroneous crutch, because most have harbored bitterness for at least a short period, and we reason that we feel the way we do because the evidence is clear and logical that it was another's actions or words that have caused us to feel our hurt, our anger, and our resentment. And she continued expressing a common feeling that the things we hoped to hold us together can actually rip us apart. Resentment, she said, was cloaked in a banner marked with the word vindication. I'm sure we can all agree that one of the great lies of the deceiver is that we can make another feel the depth of our own pain. This lie's cousin is that we have the right to pursue an equitable amount of hurt. Now, she used words like dagger and teeth to describe the pain of resentment. Now, daggers, of course, are used to kill and leave behind, and the teeth in this illustration remind me of animal teeth that are angled in such a way as to prevent the prey from being released. And resentment reiterates the evidence for justification of that grudge and desired vindication, and reiteration prevents any move forward. Then she went on to say that delay snuck in like a theater attendant, offering popcorn and a comfy chair made of my sorrow and sadness. The delay was the result of violated trust issues, and she described the destroyed trust moving about stealthily, proving within her that no one is sincere. And then she went on with a personal case study of she and her friends going to the beach, and along the way there had been this disagreement, and when they got to the beach, all of her friends went to enjoy the sand and the surf while she sat back and pouted in the car because she was mad about what they said, and no one had said at least they were sorry. And since she was the only one affected by her behavior, she asked herself, in like a form of the miracle question, she tried to picture that day as if she had released the offense and moved forward to enjoy the moments in front of her. And the follow-up to that was, she said, "What if I had?" And the picture was, "What if I could now?" To answer the question, she moves on to the Bible for inspiration, and she points out that forgiveness is necessary, but does not always feel good. Her work takes us to a point she calls cooperation. Lisa reasons that we fail to cooperate with God when we fail to forgive. And much of this reminds me of a pride problem that's preventing humility. Jesus constantly desired the Father's will to be first, and Jesus humbled himself before creation that did not recognize nor honor his deity. And the biblical approach rounds out the chapter with these two principles. First, you must give up the demand that the one who hurt you should feel the depth of your pain. And second, that you're free to move on to a better future. Of course, as I mentioned in the introduction, much of Lisa's work involved journals of her personal journey through difficulties. And we get to chapter 4, and she's titled it, "How is Forgiveness Even Possible When I Feel Like This?" In this chapter, Lisa takes us along to a therapy session, and she came to the session unwilling to talk and even wanting just to cry. Her dilemma was that she did not know how nor even want to forgive those who hurt her. The perpetrators didn't care about her pain, and they were living prosperously and happy at her expense, and adding to her perceived pain is the insult of mocking. And she reflected even on her resistance to the therapist's guide toward forgiveness, and she was a bit surprised that he didn't press her. Now, Jim is the therapist's name, and he asked Lisa if she would like to heal from this pain, and she said yes. Now, the simple question affirms a principle from solution-focused brief therapy, the assumption that the client, of course, wants a better future, and that's fundamental to the process. Uncovering Lisa's want for a better future, she realized as Jim was speaking to her that she might never feel like things were fair. And she was lost in the thought that she was only responsible for her own choices. An example from the Bible was mentioned by Jim in John chapter 5. And this is a fascinating point of responsibility. When Jesus approached the lame man at the pool of Bethsaida, he asked a direct question that was thwarted. When Jesus saw him lying there, he knew that he had already been in that condition for a long time. He said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" Now the sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no man to put me in the pool in the water when it's stirred up. But while I'm coming, another steps down before me." John chapter 5, verses 6 and 7. Instead of answering the question, the man pointed to the failure of others to help him. Now, Lisa points out that the man was blaming others, so he almost missed the power of the Savior. So today, we call that a victim mentality, and she was realizing where she was. Now, though she did not call unforgiveness a victim mentality, the contrast is seen in her ideology. One's healing ability must not be predicated on others asking for forgiveness. The healing begins with one's wanting to be forgiving. The decision to forgive opens the door to the process, which is one's own responsibility. While in her session, Lisa is given an exercise involving 3x5 cards and writing things down about events that occurred in her life. And those events had given her a perspective that helped her shroud her vision of the future. Her life was involving a dysfunctional family, and she learned early on in life that school was a great place because there were clear rules. As she aged, her expectation was stuck on those rules for problem solving, and she mentions those rules, and I can't help it. I need to share those with you. First, someone is clearly wrong. Second, someone is clearly right. Third, a person in authority declares that what is right must be done and what is wrong must be addressed. The one who is wrong must be scolded. The one who is wrong has to say they're sorry. The person in authority instructs that hurtful action must not be continued. And the person who was wronged or hurt feels secure that if the action is ever repeated, there will be consequences for the offender. In the atmosphere of the clear justice we see here, the person hurt forgives, and forgiveness then leads to reconciliation, and relationship then is restored once again. A better future for Lisa would mean a paradigm shift away from the schoolyard justice to the reality that truly life is unfair. And this would also mean that a record of wrongs would need to be released because there is no one to whom to report those wrongs. Lisa promoted the idea that this therapy helped her to recognize that experience influences perception. Perception then molds beliefs that interpret the way we see the world, and perception may tell us that something always happens. Well, now, solution-focused brief therapy includes the exception question. For instance, note the times the expected outcome did not occur. Now, as introspective as these questions are, Lisa digs even deeper. She moves into automatic reactions we have when triggers occur. For instance, when a particular person's name is mentioned, or a time, or a place, and it happens to be BC. And now forgiveness requires the release of that resentment, especially when those perpetrators seem to prosper. And it requires that we pray for those perpetrators, especially when life seems to be mocking. It's difficult, and yet that's what we have to make a conscious, intentional decision to do, and that requires a cognitive process to reject those automatic reactions. Lisa proclaimed that the decision to return to forgiveness means freedom toward a better future. And now we scan on down to chapter 14, titled Living the Practice of Forgiveness Every Day. While advocating the freedom that's enjoyed with forgiveness, our author shares some startling ideas. She fears that she and others will fail to live out the message of forgiveness every day. And though she says we cannot deny the knowledge of teaching on forgiveness found within the scriptures, we also cannot deny the ease with which the infection of bitterness returns. Now, as she continues this discussion of forgiveness, she makes mention that few would admit their deep-seated anger with God for allowing such occurrences in their lives. Still, with the boldness of Adam and Eve, many today blame God, if not on the outside, at least on the inside, for their circumstances and feelings. Recognizing the reality of where we are is a point that's not argued by any of the therapists that lean toward solution-focused brief therapy. Lisa presents a list of measurable and attainable goals for the heart growing toward forgiveness. Number 1, have a better thought. Number 2, have a better reaction. 3, have a better way to process. 4, have one better conversation. 5, have one boundary you lovingly communicate and constantly keep. 6, have one better choice not to reach for that substance to numb out. 7, have one better heart pivot toward forgiveness instead of resentment. Number 8, have one less day when you stay mad. And 9, have one less hour when you refuse grace. This particular work is thought-provoking to say the least. Its 14 chapters are augmented with a section titled A Journey Through What the Bible Actually Says About Forgiveness, and this is a list of verses with commentary on what the Bible says about forgiveness. She's done some excellent work with concise views on the verses presented. I would recommend this book for every library, particularly of those who have a desire to help others. I hope everyone has a great day, and thanks for taking this time to watch my video.